This is Sunday Edition with Richard Pyatt.
In this Sunday edition, a conversation with the Republican candidates vying for the job of Utah Attorney General will give Sean Reyes and John Swallow the chance to make their case to voters and discuss each candidate's vision for that office. Plus, in this week's political roundup, a closer look at outside money in Utah politics and if there should be more transparency. All in this Sunday edition. And a good Sunday morning to you. I'm Richard Pyatt. The state attorney general is the state's chief law enforcement officer and chief legal advisor. Republicans John Swallow and Sean Reyes both want the job and are here to take our questions. But first, a little background on both candidates. John Swallow currently serves as Utah's Chief Deputy Attorney General. He also served in Utah's House of Representatives and as a judge pro tem in the 3rd District. He has experience as a litigation attorney, has served as corporate general counsel. He earned a law degree from BYU. Sean Reyes spent 14 years as a partner at the largest law firm in the state. He's also been a small claims judge and corporate general counsel. He has founded, led, and served on numerous business and charitable boards, served on state and federal commissions, and co-founded Fraud College, an organization that combats fraud. He graduated from BYU and UC Berkeley Law School. And joining us in the studio now are Sean Reyes and John Swallow. Thank you both for being here today. Now, we want to point out to our viewers that this is not necessarily a formal debate, more of a chance for the voters to get to know both of you better. We're going to allow 30 seconds for questions. We're going to allow for opening remarks, 45 seconds each, and then for responses as needed. Let's go first with John Swallow as a result of our coin toss.
Thank you, Richard, and thanks to KSL. I'm running for this office because this is a critical time in our state, in our country, and we need to take immediate action on things that matter the most. I'm a conservative, and that's the real difference between the two of us. As a litigator, as a state lawmaker, and as Chief Deputy Attorney General, I've compiled a consistent conservative record that you can trust. I led the Utah fight to overturn Obamacare. Sean thought we should wait a little while. I led the fight to access public lands. Again, Sean thought we should wait and take a different approach. Well, we cannot wait any longer. Utah needs an Attorney General with conservative vision and conservative values. That's why I have the support of Attorney General Mark Shurtleff, U.S. Senator Mike Lee, and the NRA, and I look forward to having your support as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Swallow. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Richard. Now, the Office of Attorney General is critical to the state to defend our families and to defend our freedoms, and it has such a critical impact on the everyday lives of citizens. Now, the Attorney General is the lawyer for the state, represents the state agencies, law enforcement, but must ensure that in that representation that the rights and the liberties of the people are not lost by these state agencies. My vision is to return the Office of Attorney General back to a law office of and for the people, accountable to and transparent to the people. Now, I am not a fan of those influences on the Attorney General's office. I think it may be unduly influenced by politics, by lobbyists, and what I want to see, Richard, is that we have a law office that's accountable to the people and answerable to the people. I am not a career politician or a career lobbyist. I'm a career lawyer and leader, and that's why I believe I'm the most qualified for the job.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reyes and Mr. Swallow. We'll start with our questioning right now. I'm wondering, based on what you know about the way the current Attorney General's office is being run, what specific leadership qualities, Mr. Swallow, you would bring to the office to move it forward?
Well, thank you, Richard. Leadership is an important part of being the Attorney General. I know that from my firsthand experience as a leader in this office. The Attorney General's office has about 237 lawyers, and so it takes leadership, and leadership is really about having a vision and setting a clear course. It's not just about being a lawyer and logging billable hours. I feel that my experience as a leader in this law firm will really prepare me well to give the vision that we need to give to the other attorneys who work so hard to defend the rights and the liberties of the people.
Okay, Mr. Reyes, same question to you.
Thanks. Being a seasoned, experienced lawyer and leading litigation teams and leading lawyers is an important part of being a leader. Now, there are other aspects as well. I've led large organizations in the civic arena, in the business arena, some larger than the Attorney General's office as far as the number of lawyers. And I have a very clear style. I don't care who gets the credit. I think as long as the team wins, that's the most important thing. I think we need to roll up our sleeves, just work hard, get the job done, and that is what's key there in the office. That is what I think the lawyers in the office are looking for, and that's what I will bring.
Okay, let me pin you down just a little bit more specifically. What things would you change based on what you know about the office right now?
The things that I would change, I think the office needs to be, again, less political, less influenced by special interest, by lobbyists, by political agendas. And my background, again, is I'm not a career politician, I'm not a career fundraiser, I'm not a career candidate. I'm a career lawyer and a leader, and I think that's what the office needs the most right now.
I know, Mr. Swallow, that you have some specific ideas about how you would change the office. It says so on your website. What kinds of things are you talking about there? Kind of put those in your own words about the specific changes that you would make to the way the Attorney General's office runs right now.
Well, sure. Well, one of the things I'd do differently, and I've been in the office just long enough, 2.5 years, so I understand the good things and I understand the things that are problems as well. One of the things I'd really like to change is the political nature of the office. It's a political job. I have experience in the legislature. I've worked with the governor's office really well, and I have those great relationships. But I'd like to see us dealing with issues, policy issues, more behind the scenes instead of out in the public life and the light quite as much as it's been in the past. I also feel like we should change some of our priorities and focuses. Since I've been there, we've really led the charge on fighting for access to our public lands so we can develop our natural resources, create Utah jobs, and fund education. So I'm going to really lead with a vision on the priorities that are important to Utah, and that's the change I'd make.
I know that this is a partisan race. Obviously, you're in a political fight right now. Can you assure people, Mr. Reyes, that this is going to be a nonpartisan office, that you're truly going to be serving all of the citizens of the state of Utah, as you stated? And give me some examples of some things that you would have done differently, perhaps.
No, Richard, it is a partisan race. It's set up that way, and I'm proud to represent the Republican Party, but a lot of the functions of the office are nonpartisan. I liken the office of Attorney General much to a firefighter, and if somebody's home is on fire, they care most about somebody who's experienced and qualified to evacuate their family and to put out the fire. And I think that's the same with the Attorney General's office. We need somebody who has a career of winning cases in the courtroom, also who has a career of leading people and leading lawyers to victory in protecting Utah businesses and in protecting Utah citizens, and that is exactly what I will bring to the office.
Mr. Swallow?
Well, you know, I've been leading the largest case for Utah in the history of our state, the Obamacare case. A great example of how partisan it can be is in Arizona or Nevada. The Attorney General's a Democrat and wouldn't join the lawsuit of the 26 states. And so even though it's a nonpartisan office, perhaps it is partisan, and I cannot divorce myself from the conservative principles and values that I have. As Attorney General, I'll support the policies of the legislature and the governor when I can, but at times I will disagree, and my conservative bias will come through as Attorney General.
Okay, so you're saying that you will keep the office a partisan office. You'll be beholden to the governor and the legislature, perhaps.
No, well, they set the policy for the state, but what I will do is I will follow my conscience, and I will never forget that I'm a Republican and a conservative, because those are the values that I hold dear in my heart. And so when I make a decision, it will be based a lot on my own personal values, and I think that's why it's so important in this race to really drill down on where are the values. Is a candidate a real conservative, and will he hold true to those values?
Okay, Mr. Reyes, do you have anything to add to that? Do you agree with that?
Well, again, I do have good relationships with the governor and the legislators. Many of them have asked for my advice in the past and counsel. That said, the Office of Attorney General is an elected office, and because of that, the Attorney General has to be independent even of the legislature and the governor, and I think that's a key role for the Attorney General. He is the voice for the people, and in many cases is the last line of defense for the people. So consensus is a good thing, and I would look to work with the legislature and the governor when they are doing things constitutionally. But if not, then I would make sure that they understand my position.
Okay, so let me just be clear about this, because Mark Shurtleff has kind of stepped out a little bit. He has taken a stand against the lawmakers when it comes to certain immigration pieces of legislation that were going to cost the state money as far as fighting them. He's stepped out to defend Attorney General Eric Holder, and when it came to the Fast and Furious raids, there have been other examples examples as well. Are you saying, Mr. Swallow, that you disagree with Mr. Shurtleff about taking those positions and that he should have stuck to the Republican line on those?
No, I'm not disagreeing at all. In fact, my record will show that I'm able to be independent from the legislature or from anyone else I disagree with. When the president put forward No Child Left Behind, I was one of the few Republicans that stood against him, and I actually asked the vice president's wife to change her speech when she came for a fundraiser for me, and she spent a half an hour reworking her speech, and she was quite upset with me. I have the courage to stand on my own, and I don't want to make any misrepresentation about that. If and when I disagree with the legislature, I will let them know. The key is how you let them know, whether you go public about it and try to create a war, or if you try to resolve those differences behind the scenes and then move forward together if you can.
Let me ask you to respond to that as well. When you were watching those cases, I'm sure you were keeping track of them. Did you agree with Mr. Shurtleff, or did you disagree with him?
No, I think the approach is one better. If you do it behind the scenes, I would be less public, less political, if you would, less open about that. I think that that is a prudent approach. I think the legislature and the governor appreciate doing it that way. That said, if there is a case or if there is an issue that I feel very strongly about, or if there is something I think that the Attorney General's office can help in shining a light upon, whether that be domestic violence or fraud, then I would use the office in a very public way to help draw attention to those issues, inviting the public to help become part of the solution rather than just growing government and relying on government to answer those problems.
Okay, very good. The time has gone fast. We need to take a break right now. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, more questions and the closing statements from both candidates. This is Sunday Edition. Welcome back to our conversation with the Republican candidates for Utah Attorney General John Swallow and Sean Reyes. Let's pick up our conversation now. Mr. Reyes, what is your view of lawmakers pushing to hire outside lawyers, perhaps to save money or for another purpose, to handle cases that are representing the state of Utah?
Sure, as long as it's an open process, an open bidding process, I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a good idea, especially when there are a number of states and you can share resources. Economies of scale make sense. So I'm not opposed to using outside law firms. I think sometimes there's expertise that can be had, which would supplement the fine lawyers that they have in the Attorney General's office.
What kinds of cases would that apply to, would you say?
There are any number of different types of cases. Some of them would be 10th Amendment states' rights cases. Some of them would be large product liability cases.
What are your feelings about that topic, Mr. Swallow?
Well, generally speaking, I'd like to take all of our litigation in-house and conserve taxpayer dollars, because outside firms can get expensive. But like, for example, in the Obamacare case, where 26 states were involved, it was very important for us to have one voice as the states. And so it made a lot of sense. I think Utah spent like $50,000 total for that case. And so it made a lot of sense to go outside. We have very specific rules in the office that govern, how the fair bidding process has to work and when that's necessary to do, but I would like to do as much as I can in-house and save the taxpayer dollars. And we have outstanding lawyers in our office. I want to compliment them on the air, and we can use their expertise whenever possible.
Let me ask you about some of the difficult subjects that the Attorney General is tasked with pursuing, in particular polygamy. How far, Mr. Swallow, should the state go in prosecuting polygamy?
Well, again, the policy of the Attorney General to this point has been he will not prosecute those who are consensual adults who are living in that type of a lifestyle. There are social reasons and legal reasons for that. But when there's abuse, child abuse, when teenage brides, for example, or when there's fraud in the welfare programs of the state or federal government, then we have to be very aggressive. And those are the same policies I would continue as Attorney General, because, again, like with Warren Jeffs, when we prosecuted him with the Washington County Attorney's Office, we were there in full support, and it was very important that we fight that fight. And it's also important that victims of that type of abuse know where they can call and how they can get a hold of us to make sure that they're safe and protected and aren't afraid of reporting abuse, which is really important to me.
Okay. Mr. Reyes, are there any limits to what the state should do as far as pursuing polygamy in your view?
I would prosecute polygamy. It's the law of the land. It's not one of my highest priorities, but I would aggressively pursue those who are committing underage rape, child abuse. Predators like Warren Jeffs, I strongly believe, need to be behind bars, and I will gladly put them behind bars. I also believe that we should not expose the state to liabilities by managing private trusts. We see where that's gotten us now, and I was opposed to that and continue to be dismayed at the outcome. But my focus would be on protecting women and children and going after economic fraud, tax fraud.
Okay, excellent. Let me finish up the questioning, but I have another very difficult topic, and that is this topic of immigration. How far should the state's role be in pursuing and prosecuting illegal immigrants when it's a federal issue after all?
Good. I'm glad you asked that, Richard. HB 116, which went too far, is a bill that I opposed because it's unconstitutional. I did, however, support very strongly HB 497, which allows us, among other things, and mandated that we run background checks on those arrested for serious crimes and offenses. That is a proper exercise of our state police power. I think there are thousands of cases right now that are not being prosecuted of identity theft, and I would be very aggressive about those. I think that we need to do something because it's hurting our families, our children. I would support an E-Verify bill as well with some teeth that I could prosecute. And lastly, let me say this, Richard, I would do everything in my power to push the federal government to come up with a national solution, starting with enforcing the border.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Swallow, how far should we go in pursuing immigration here in this state when it's a federal issue?
Sure, and it is a federal issue, but we have to deal with the consequences in Utah. I mean, it's a strain on our criminal justice system with the crime. It's a strain on our taxpayers with the benefits. When I was in the legislature, I had a clear record on this. I stood strong against illegal immigration, and I would do that as Attorney General, supporting the policies of the legislature like House Bill 497. Sean talks about House Bill 116, which is a real important issue moving forward. We'll have to look at that very carefully because we'll have to defend that law if it goes into effect as the Attorney General's office. But I have a very strong record. Our office has a secure strike force, which is taking down document mills right now. As Attorney General, I'll be ever stronger on that issue. It's a very important issue to us.
So we'll let you take a real deep breath, and we're going to move straight into our closing remarks now because our time is almost up. Mr. Swallow?
Well, thank you, Richard, and thanks to KSL and Sean and those who are listening to us. I'm running for this office because I believe in this office, and I know what an effective Attorney General can accomplish. I'm a conservative. I have the support of the conservatives, and I will be a conservative Attorney General. I've helped lead the Utah fight against Obamacare and sued the federal government on access to public lands so that we could create jobs and fund education for our school children. No one needs to wonder where I will stand or how I will lead as the Attorney General. I will stand on my record. I will be a conservative Attorney General. And I will stand against and fight anyone who, for any reason, takes away the rights of the individuals, our families, our citizens, and I will lead with integrity in the Attorney General's office, and I would ask you humbly for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Swallow. Mr. Reyes?
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for your listeners. I appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about my vision. I am the most qualified candidate for the office of Utah Attorney General. I have won civil and criminal cases and led legal teams throughout my 15-year legal career in court, representing Utah citizens, representing Utah businesses, and that is why so many legal leaders, presidents of law firms, large and small, presidents of companies, support me because they know when it comes to my background, not only do I have the most experience and success as a lawyer, but I have the most as a leader. And many of them are conservatives, and I'm very proud of my conservative principles and credentials. But this is the thing. We are not running for lobbyist general or fundraiser general. We're running for Attorney General. And when they vote, and when you vote on June 26th, and I hope you do, for Attorney General, you will be voting for the state's top lawyer. That's why I was Utah's Young Lawyer of the Year in 2006, and that's why I was the Young Lawyer of the Year for the United States in 2008. I ask for your vote, and please come to our website, SeanReyes.com, to learn more about me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Sean Reyes, John Swallow, for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Richard.